He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of 365 Sports here in beautiful New York City. Zach Gelb here with you on a conference championship football Friday. Welcome on in to 365 Sports. However you are tuning in to us, we appreciate you. You can always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or on the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. And you can also find me on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. Robert Turbin, the former Seattle Seahawks running back, won a Super Bowl championship with the franchise, is going to join us coming up at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, from GoLongTD.com, longtime NFL reporter, does a great job covering all things NFL, is really tapped into the Buffalo Bills. Ty Dunn will join us. If you are finding us, obviously, on YouTube, on our 365 Sports page, watching us live as we speak, please subscribe if you haven't done so. And as always, my great producer, Garrett Ross, is back in our Waco, Texas City studios. All righty. Conference championship is here. You would think we would be leading with the Patriots going up against the Broncos. You think we would be leading with maybe even the Seattle Seahawks hosting the LA Rams. But I got to start off with the college football note that did come down today. This decision was going to be punted until after the season, and there was a big debate on, was the college football playoff going to expand? It felt like it was inevitably going to expand to 16 teams, but the college football playoff is going to stay at 12 teams. And I think that this is a good thing, as it was reported by Brett McMurphy, Pete Nakos, and Chris Lowe. And I'm fine with the college football playoff staying at 12 teams. There are some caveats here, and there are some changes. You remember a year ago, after the first installment of the 12-team college football playoff, they said, hey, just because you win a conference championship doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a bye, like it was in the first installment of a 12-team playoff. Now, coming off year number 2, the changes that were made is that there's going to be automatic bids to each Power 4 conference champion. So that is obviously a domino that did fall from Duke winning the conference championship last year. And Duke didn't deserve to go. But Duke, if they would have won their conference championship last year under this new format, which they did, they would be going to the college football playoff. And a big reason there, I don't think it's because the ACC was upset that Duke didn't get in. It was because Miami was almost left out, and there was a real possibility, and a lot of people actually anticipated that the ACC would not have had a representative in the college football playoff if Duke did beat Virginia to win the conference championship. And as you know it, eventually they said goodbye to Notre Dame, and boom, they put Miami in there. So the ACC did get a representative. So that's one thing that I don't have a problem with it. If you win the SEC, if you win the Big Ten, if you win the Big 12, if you win the ACC, in most years, and I think Duke was the outlier last year, you should be able to go to the college football playoff. Now, this isn't directly in regards to, hey, Notre Dame missed the playoff, then Notre Dame gets rewarded. This was already in the works, but this is highlighted once again, that Notre Dame is going to be guaranteed an at-large bid if they're ranked in the top 12 in the final poll. So last year in the final poll, Notre Dame, they were ranked 11th, but they didn't get in. So Notre Dame didn't get in, and that's because there's other stipulations in place where you have to get other teams that were in. Like you look around with the way that you have the G5 champions, and obviously it's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. They do get in. And that's what it was last year. So clearly you had Tulane that got in. You got James Madison that was in. And this year, if that was the way that it did go down, Miami was that 11th, was that 11th team in that 6-11 matchup. Miami did get on it. It was 7-10. That's what it was. So Miami did get in. And that was the last kind of like at-large bid, if you may say, where there wasn't a direct tie-in. So Notre Dame got squeezed out. So going off of last year's format, if that rule was in place where Notre Dame, just as long as they're in the top 12 in the final rankings, they get in, Notre Dame would have been in over Miami, and you never get this Miami run. And who knows, like Notre Dame, as easily as Tony, as easily as I just was reading the chat, as easily as you saw Miami get on in and go on their run last year, that could have been Notre Dame as well. Notre Dame could have got in the playoff this past year, and they could have made a run to the national championship game, just like how you got a chance to see what Miami did this year and what also Notre Dame did last year. So I look at this, and Garrett, I'm curious your thoughts on this. And it's a two-parter. So I'll ask you the first part, then
Okay.
Four conference champions, the 4 Power 4 conference champions getting an automatic spot. There's no issue with that, right?
No, that's a no-brainer. If you win your conference, then you should automatically, in my mind, be guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff. There's no reason you shouldn't.
Especially, and we had this conversation yesterday, the haves and the have-nots.
The have-nots, correct.
And we know that the Big Ten and the SEC are the haves, and everyone else pretty much is the have-nots. But the have-nots still need something to play for, and it's not like the Big 12 is some joke of a conference. It's not like the ACC is some joke of a conference, but the way the current power structure is in college football, it's tier 1, it's tier 2, and then it's really everybody else. But in tier 1, it is Big 10, SEC, tier 2, then Big 12, ACC. Obviously, Notre Dame. Where do you throw Notre Dame in there? Because I would say Notre Dame's not tier 1, but they're not tier 2.
They're
Aren't
sandwiched.
they kind of like
they're
the cream in the Oreo?
They
right?
are. And because you have the caveat too of we essentially run the ACC without being in there. Like we have to tell them, we get to tell them what to do. We get to tell them go add Stanford and Cal. We get to hold them to those types of standards, but we don't have to be in their conference. So I think with that sway and with their AD having just as much say in these rooms, and honestly more say in a lot of situations than Brett Yormark or Jim Phillips, the commissioners of the Big 12 and the ACC, yeah, definitely Notre Dame is sandwiched. I think Notre Dame automatically is above the ACC or the Big 12 just because of how things are set up right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So the Big 10 and the SEC are the top of the Oreo. Notre Dame is the cream. And then the ACC and the Big 12 are the bottom of the Oreo. And with this new format change where you would have each Power 4 conference champion, regardless of the ranking, they would get in. It also, even though last year I think is such an anomaly where all hell has to go loose for these things to happen. But you know what? We see these scenarios. Like who would have thought in the first installment of the college football playoff that you would have had Boise State as a G5 champion be ranked higher than the Big 12 champion, or no, it was the ACC champion, and then have a spot on the bye. So after that, they said, okay, we don't need it to be and get this go. It's basically saying you're a Power 4 team and you win a champion. Still, the top 5 conference champions get in. But it doesn't, it prevents a situation from happening where a Tulane and a James Madison gets in. Like it would have just been Tulane last year, and you would have had your 4 Power 4 conference champions, which would have been Texas Tech, would have been Duke, would have been Georgia, and then also would have been Indiana. So those are the slight modifications. But here's the other thing that I wanted to bring up to you, Garrett. With this one, I think it's more of a conversation piece.
Okay.
Notre Dame, with this rule that's in place, that was already negotiated last year, but now people know it, that if they're just in the top 12, they definitely go.
Yeah.
Do you think that's right? Like with the scenario that had played out last year, where Miami would have been ranked 10th and Notre Dame would have been ranked 11th, Notre Dame just being in the top 12, they automatically go. Do you think that's right?
I don't. I hate it. I hate how they get this free pass every year just because you have an NBC deal and you're backed by the Catholic Church. Like I really think that's really what it comes down to. And look, they haven't been like we'll get into this later. Like Notre Dame played for a national championship last year. They're good, right? They're going to be in the mix, but I don't think they should be guaranteed a free pass. I think you should have to go and win it. I think you should be in a conference at some point, but we're never going to, I don't know that we're ever going to see them have to be forced into a conference. And until then, what can we do?
Well, here's the two things. Number one, Notre Dame doesn't have to join a conference.
No, they don't.
It would be fun if they did join a conference. I personally think the Big Ten would be best suited for them. Or they could maybe say, go to the Big 12, go to the ACC, where they could really call the shots and say, you need us more than we need you. Right. I think the Big Ten would like Notre Dame. I think the SEC would like Notre Dame. But the SEC and the Big Ten, they don't need Notre Dame.
No.
The ACC and the Big 12, if they could get Notre Dame, they would need them. And Notre Dame could then say, okay, we're different than everybody else. Kind of like what Florida State is trying to do in the ACC. Notre Dame could actually do that if they were a full-time member for football in the ACC or the Big 12. But I would just say this. Why would they join a conference at this point? Like, if I'm Notre Dame and I could schedule my schedule the way that I want, I have my independent TV contract. I'm also being told now, if I'm a top 12 team in the country, it doesn't matter if there's Miami in front of me and it's between Miami and Notre Dame. We get to usurp Miami in this new format. Like, the rules are set up. Why would I join a conference? I'm not saying it's right. I would like to see them in a conference, whether it's the Big Ten, the SEC, or go run the ACC, or go run the Big 12. But what's the benefit now in the year of 2026, Garrett, moving forward, if this is at 12, and eventually, even though it's staying at 12 now, it's probably going to go up and up and up. Like, I don't see why Notre Dame would join a conference anytime soon.
I don't think they have to. And then if they do get to the point where you do expand this, then you automatically are going to get – it's even more of a free pass for them. You wouldn't even have to say you have to be in the top 12. You're automatically going to get a free pass to get in. I just think they're in a unique situation. And I don't know how, like, we've gotten to this point with them. And I don't know what the breaking point is. But at some point, something's got to happen to where you put them in a conference, because nobody should just get a free pass year in and year out to say, oh, you're automatically into a playoff. That's like what the Big Ten's trying to do. They just want it set up where in the SEC, but they just want it to where it's flooded with all of their schools. I don't give a damn about watching that in the playoff. I've watched you in conference play all year. I don't want to watch you play each other again.
The other thing, too, I wonder now the committee knowing, like, if Notre Dame's a top 12 team, they automatically get in. I wonder what bumpers they put up when it comes to evaluating Notre Dame. Because I was giving this some thought. Like, last year, in the final ranking, they put Alabama 9, Miami 10, Notre Dame 11, BYU 12. Like, even if the committee last year wanted to, like, knock Notre Dame down an extra spot, they would still get in because they'd be a top 12 team. Like, if they reverse BYU and Notre Dame would still be 12. Like, is the committee, what I'm asking here, are they going to now be tougher, I wonder? And I think the answer is no. But will they be tougher on Notre Dame? Because could you imagine if that scenario's in place? But, like, Garrett, if last year, if that scenario's in place with the way the rules are going to be moving forward, that you're just in the top 12, could you imagine if they swapped and put Miami in front of Notre Dame in a year where Miami beat Notre Dame? And then, because of a technicality, because of a rule, sorry, Miami, you're out and Notre Dame's in. I wonder, knowing that top 12 rule, if maybe, like last year, the initial rankings, Notre Dame was at 10, Miami was at 18. I wonder if they'll drop Notre Dame below that 12 line in future years just to kind of save their ass to prevent a situation like that. I
don't think they will. And if that scenario would have played out this year, I think you would have seen both Miami and Notre Dame in the playoff, and you would have saw James Madison sitting at home. I don't think we need two group of 5 teams in this. We do not need two group of 5s. And honestly, I'm going to piss people off probably, but I think the group of 5 should go do their own thing, because there's no way you can financially compete year in and year out. Like, you can get a team that's hot, right? Like, you can get a Tulane that's going to come in there. They're not going to run the gauntlet. They don't have the financial capabilities to do it. We talk about yesterday, we had a whole segment, right? Talk about, could the ACC or the Big 12 win a championship? Can one of those teams?
And we both said
no, right? So what the hell makes you think that you could have a group of 5 team do it? They're already at more of a disadvantage. Like, I understand wanting them in there and the hope, you're selling hope that, hey, we can go and win a national championship. Reality is, you're not doing that. So I would rather go and play against my own people and have an opportunity to win my own championship than have to be in a financial disparity and get my rosters rated. Essentially, that's all I'm doing is I'm going out here playing. My quarterback has a good game. Guess what? He's on that team next week. Like,
so I went to Temple. So I have a soft spot for these smaller schools. And, like, I saw my school when I was there. They beat Vanderbilt, which, going down, get an SEC win, even though it was Vanderbilt at the time. Now that means a little bit different because Vanderbilt has had this like renaissance the last 2 years and a rejuvenation. But that was cool. They beat Penn State for the first time in 74 years. Then they played Notre Dame on College Game Day, and they lost the game at the end. I think it was like 21-17 or something like that. If you would have told Zach Gelb this 10 years ago, hey, no spot for the G5, I would probably have cursed you off the show. I think you're right, though, now, Garrett. Like, let's have the college football playoff just for the Power Four. And I guess you'd have to factor in Notre Dame to that, too. And maybe that's how you could maybe force the hand of Notre Dame. Like, hey, these are only for the Power Four conferences with the college football playoff. But then the G5, they have their own playoff. Like, I think that would be a fine idea if you make the G5 play their own playoff. But last year, even if they had the rules this year, Miami would have been out, Notre Dame would have been in. Yes, you wouldn't have seen James Madison, but Tulane still would have gone, and Duke would have been one of the Power Four, Power Four spots that get it. It would still be five. Like, that's my understanding still, right, Garrett, that the G5 still going to get a spot, right?
Yeah, the G5 would have gotten a spot. Yeah, so that you would have. I just think you wouldn't have seen. I'm trying to think of how. So you would have.
You would have seen
so
James Madison out.
Yeah, James Madison would have been out, but yeah.
James Madison and Miami would have been out, and it would have been Duke and Notre Dame. Those would have been the two that would have got in with these new rules.
Yeah.
Bottom line, this is what I just took from this conversation in the last 16 minutes. The way college football is run is so effed up. Like, can't we just put the 12 best teams in? But there's stipulations and rules in place. All right, after the first year, for the bye spots, you don't have to be a conference champion. All right, that doesn't really dictate the best 12 teams. Then after this year, the Power Four conference champions are automatically guaranteed a spot. And you know what? Notre Dame didn't get it. I know this rule was already in place before Notre Dame got held out. But the optics of it, Notre Dame didn't get in. So now Miami could be ranked higher than them, but Notre Dame, if they're top 12, protected. It's like, if I'm running college football, I would just say put the top 12 teams in there. That's what I would do. And there would be years like where you could have a Big 12 champion or ACC champion that's on the outside looking in. So if you want to put that one caveat of a conference champion gets in, I'm okay with that. But when you start to get into this situation, and I understand why it's there, but when you start to get into this, and it shows the power of Notre Dame and their relevance. But if you start to put in this situation where you go, oh, Notre Dame, as long as they're in the top 12, they're guaranteed a spot, that's when it gets messy. But Notre Dame fans, you could already celebrate a spot in the college football playoff for this upcoming college football playoff, because here's your schedule this year. Wisconsin State week 3, win. You play at Purdue week 4, win. At UNC week 5, win. Stanford week 6, win. At BYU could be a tricky game. Like, that's the first game. Like, Garrett, would you agree? Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue. We're going to play UNC. The Tar Heels, Stanford, at BYU. Notre Dame, who last year, they started off the season with Miami and A&M, two great games to start the year. Notre Dame doesn't play a meaningful game until they're at BYU on October 17th.
I hate that. And kind of looking at the schedule, that was the first game I noticed. When I looked at that one, I was like, okay, that's one where I think the Irish can lose. The other one's SMU. I think that's going to be a really good game. I don't think sleeping on SMU would be a good idea for Notre Dame. I know CJ Carr is going to come back, and he's going to be your Heisman front runner for a lot of people for Notre Dame. But Rhett Lashley, you're going to have Kevin Jennings coming back at quarterback. I just think that they have a lot of good things going. They were just in the playoff.
Yeah.
They beat Miami last year. So that's one where I think that could possibly be a loss if you're Notre Dame. But for the most part, dude, like you're going to just waltz into the damn playoff.
But you could argue that they have 3 tough games next year. At BYU, after that they play Navy, easy for them. Then they play Miami, tough game. Boston College, easy. SMU, okay, I guess I'll give that to you. And then at Syracuse. So Notre Dame, you can't have a Marshall flub. You can't have the school they beat with Coach Thomas Hammock. What was it, Northern Illinois? You can't lose one of those games. But if you beat the teams you're expected to beat, which is Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue, at UNC, Stanford, Navy, Boston College, and Syracuse, then you really only have 3 games. BYU, Miami, and SMU. And if you win 2 out of the 3, you're going to be in the top 12. You are easily going to be in the top 12. I understand SMU. Lashley, if he wanted to leave SMU, he could have this year, and he easily could have been the coach at Arkansas. Like he would have been a hot commodity in this cycle. He probably would have got an SEC job. But how much of it? Let me ask you this, Garrett. How much of a difference? Like I think SMU is better than Pitt.
Right.
They're really that much of a huge difference from SMU to Pitt in your estimation?
I think there is, honestly. I really do. I think you have a better coaching staff. I like Narduzzi. He's a good coach, but I think Rhett Lashley and that staff he's built around him is a better staff. I think the talent that you can get in the state of Texas, especially having kids come back through the transfer portal and you're soaking up all that Dallas talent right there, makes them dangerous. I think they have a really good the bank, honestly, dude. They're sitting on a gold mine that they've been holding since the 80s with the death penalty. They've been waiting for this moment, so they have all the money they want. SMU's dead serious. I think SMU's way better in a better situation than Pitt.
The only reason I asked that is because Notre Dame played Pitt last year.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Narduzzi basically was like, hey, the game doesn't matter because it's not a conference game.
And then they got their ass whooped.
And that's what I'm about to say. They got their ass whooped. So I agree with you. SMU is better than Pitt, but I don't think it's like that much of a difference. Like I would say SMU's here and Pitt's probably here. Like there's a difference, but I don't think it's as sizable as one would think entering next year. And I know it's not always apples to apples that way, but if Notre Dame just beat the snot out of Pitt, do I think SMU is going to pull off the upset? Probably not, I would say. So either way, what you and I are both getting at, it's going to be really tough for Notre Dame when you have a cushion of top 12 protected. And hey, last year they had 2 really good losses. They lost to Miami, they lost to A&M, nothing to sneeze at. If you get 2 losses next year, maybe you're not in the top 12. But if Notre Dame just has 1 loss next year, I don't see how they're not going to be in the top 12. And that's the other thing that we're starting to see here with the extra conference games getting added in with the schedule and all that stuff. Like, look at it, Texas. They had that strong out-of-conference schedule up against Ohio State week 1. That got them a loss. Then they suffered 2 more losses just by playing the gauntlet that is the SEC. And Texas is on the outside looking in. So still, I understand strength of schedule as a heightened awareness here, but I still do believe that when you look at a resume, in most years, Notre Dame 2 losses or fewer, are they really going to be outside of the top 12? Like there's context to everything, but you look at that schedule, and I would say Notre Dame, if you have 1 loss, you're definitely in. If you have 2 losses, you still may be able to get in the college football playoff because they had 2 losses last year and they would have got the top 12 protection if it did stand. Do you like, though, that they're staying at 12, Garrett? Because I love it. I don't know where you stood on this originally, but a 4-team college football playoff in most years, I think they got it right. Maybe just the Florida State year when people go, oh, you could use an extra one. I thought maybe you go to 6, maybe you go to 8. But once they went from 4 to 12, something that I feared as a college football fan was, oh, you go to 4 to 12 just like that? Well, they're going to expand that bad boy in a matter of no time. And the fact that they kept it at 12, and it's only for a year, and we'll see what happens after that, I like that we didn't expand because once you get past 12, even though there were some teams last year that you could have a case, and still, if you have 3 losses, Texas, I have no sympathy. A few years ago, Alabama and South Carolina, I don't have any sympathy. But once you get past 12 teams, it does feel like the product could get watered down a bit.
No, it really is. I'm glad they're staying here. I would even be fine if they would have took it or if they would have just kept it at 8. I think there's probably 8 teams legitimately every year that can win a national championship. I don't think there's 12, but I understand having it and having the surprise of an upset or something like that. I do like 12. I think it's a good structure. I just don't want to see it flooded with all SEC and Big Ten teams in Notre Dame. That's what I don't want to see. I want to see the best team. Like, I hate how we've gotten to a point where that's all it is. And I don't know how you could really fix that other than teams just actually getting better and winning. But I do like 12. I don't want to see it expand, and I damn sure don't ever want to see it go to 24 ever.
So here's the thing. You say there was probably like 8 teams a year that can win a national championship.
Maybe 8.
Maybe. Where were you before the college football playoff started? Let's just go through this. I thought Indiana could win a championship. Yourself.
Yes.
I thought Ohio State could win a championship.
Georgia, I thought.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through teams here. So just go yes or no. So you're in agreement with me, yes and yes right there, right?
Yep.
Georgia, yep, right?
Yep.
I didn't think Texas Tech could. Could you?
No, I think they did exactly what I was expecting them to do.
Okay. Oregon, I thought, could win a championship.
They could, I thought.
As their wide receivers weren't healthy. Ole Miss, I did not think they could win a championship. A&M, I didn't think could win a championship. Oklahoma, I didn't think they could win a championship. Alabama, I had a future ticket on them, but I did not think they were going to win a championship. Did you?
No, not at all.
Miami, did you think they could win a championship?
No, because I didn't trust Carson Beck. I didn't even think that he could get them to the championship.
And I agree with you on that, and they ended up getting there.
That's
I thought
wild.
Notre Dame could get to a championship and win it. Did you?
I thought they could get there. I don't know that I thought that they could win it, but I thought they had an opportunity to get back there.
BYU?
No.
Texas?
Yes, initially I did. I thought it was going to be trouble because of the offensive line, like I mentioned the other day. I think that was something that a lot of people missed on, but I thought they still had the potential to go out with just the talent on defense and Arch and the running backs. Yeah, I thought they could win it.
I'll give you one more. What about Vanderbilt?
Hell no.
Okay.
Not even close.
So we are disagreed on a few teams, but it's 4 to 6 teams that we got to.
Right.
Like that was it. 4 to 6. If I gave you all yours and you gave me all mine, it would be 6 max. But the thing is, in this 12-team playoff, it was Ohio State, Notre Dame. A lot of people were down on Notre Dame. I thought actually Notre Dame could go a year ago. And then this year, I don't think many people would have predicted what it would have been. Indiana didn't surprise anybody, but I don't know how many people saw Miami. So you still got to play the games, and the games are ultimately won on the field. But all these rules that are in place and all the constant changes, can't we just get the 12 best teams? That's all I ask for. Now, Cam Newton went on ESPN first day. And Cam just used, trust me, I could be the loudest in a lot of rooms. Does not mean that you're always right. Listen to what Cam said about Notre Dame.
Bump Notre Dame. And I'm going to tell you this. When you start to think about all these different things that the preferential treatment that Notre Dame has gotten, will get, and will continue to get, that's why I'm like, bump Notre Dame. It comes down to a point where now you start to say, Cam, you bitter. SEC is dead. That's cool. Oh, man, whatever. Notre Dame is... Notre Dame hasn't been relevant in years.
They were just in the national championship game 1 year ago.
They haven't been relevant for years. You take that one national championship with Coach Freeman out of the equation. They have not been relevant.
And my
for
question
years.
is this:
Here's the interesting part, Gary. It's on ESPN. And he's saying Notre Dame has not been relevant in years when we are on the precipice of conference championship weekend. And guess who's the biggest talking point today with the college football playoff staying at 12? And the rule that, people knew was there, but now they're seeing it, that Notre Dame is top 12 protected. Notre Dame. So you can't tell me Notre Dame isn't relevant. And good on Shay, I think her name is, for saying, well, they were just in the national championship a year ago. And can I tell you why Cam was so negative on Notre Dame there? It's because Cam embarrassed himself a year ago when he was on ESPN before the college football playoff started. And he's like, no one wants to see Notre Dame in the college football playoff. They don't belong. And they made it to the national championship game, and he looked like a damn fool. And now he's looking like a fool once again. They haven't been relevant in 10 years, he says. They just were in the national championship a year ago, and then he got checked on it, and he just screamed and said it once again. They haven't been relevant in a long time. Like, what are you talking about? Cam is entertaining, and I get that he generates a lot of views. But his analysis has been garbage. He's been calling the Patriots fool's gold all throughout the year. His Notre Dame hatred the last 2 years is nonsense. And wherever you lie on this issue, and I don't even like that Notre Dame is top 12 protected, you can't say that they're irrelevant. Their brand is so powerful. We'll take a timeout. Zach Gelb here with you on 65. We return. Super back. Robert Turbin's going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on the NFC Conference Championship game, the AFC Championship game, and we'll also go around the coaching carousel when the Zach Gelb Show continues right on 365 Sports.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
Hey guys, I'm Abby Dommett, 2023 CrossFit Games athlete, and I use Airwave because it helps me breathe easier and stay more relaxed during my workouts.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very discreet.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Football Friday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Zach Gelb Show. It is conference championship weekend. We got the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Rams, and also the New England Patriots going out to Denver to do battle with the Broncos. Robert Turbin won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. Does a great job on Sirius XM NFL Radio, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Robert, how you been?
I've been great. I'm excited for this weekend, man. Thanks for having me on.
I know you were in a few conference championship games, so let's go in order here. How do you recall Richard Sherman and Michael Crabtree and then the rant that happened afterwards? Like, when did you guys know what Richard Sherman did? Not obviously making the stop, which was huge. That led to the interception, but that interview afterwards, which was always some fun Seattle Seahawks teams.
It was legendary. It's part of the legend who is Richard Sherman. He was always outspoken. Whether it was training camp, whether it was a practice during the regular season, whether it was a walkthrough the night before the game, if he felt something that he needed to get off his chest, he was going to let you know. And that night was no different.
You would think the Super Bowl is going to be the toughest game of your career because in an ideal world, it's two great teams, it's wire to wire, and it's decided right at the end. The Super Bowl you guys won up against the Broncos. I was there at MetLife Stadium. I'll never forget it. There was two Seahawks fans in front of me. They were throwing Skittles in the air, like right out of the gate. And then they disappeared at the end of the first quarter. And I didn't see them the rest of the game because the game was basically over right away. And I'm getting on the train to go home. And I run into these two guys and they could barely walk because they're drunk as a skunk and they already started to party early. That Super Bowl victory that you guys had, like, how do you look back at it? Because the game was over and you guys were champions so early, even though there was still time left on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, it's one of the most memorable things that has happened in my career. And I was so young, I was only in my second year. And so you really don't understand or even sometimes appreciate, what you just accomplished because, we end up going back to the Super Bowl, obviously, again next year. But outside of that, man, I never even touched the playoffs. Only one other time was I in the playoffs the rest of my 8-year career. And so then you start to realize as you become a veteran, how slim, these opportunities are. But, I've got stories galore that I can tell you about that night. But it was, and I'll tell you this too. It was a tough game. until it wasn't. Okay, so it was one of the most amazing nights of my life for sure.
Give me a story about Marshawn Lynch, because there's so many legendary stories about him, but you got to be with him day in and day out and share that running back room with him.
Yeah, man. God, I don't even know where to start. Marshawn was just such a special player. It was just like, he would do things in practice. Like, you guys saw him play, but he would do things in practice that just make you say, wow, and then you understood, why he's such a great player and why he's on his way, to the Hall of Fame. But I remember when I was a rookie, and, Marshawn and I are from the Bay Area. And so, when you come in as a rookie, okay, everything's kind of outlined for you. Then you play the season. And when the season's over, this is like your first opportunity to get a crack at the off season. This is something that most people don't talk about, because you don't really know how to navigate that, organize it, structure it. When do you train? When do you not train? When do you start? How long should you take a break, etc. And so I go up to Marshawn and I'm like, hey, man, can I train with you this off season? And he looks at me, he goes, I don't train. I was like, okay. That was that. Like, he didn't try to like come back, or obviously he looked out for me, later on, but he left it at that. And I was just like, I was just this young kid, confused as hell on how to approach my first off season. It was pretty funny.
You think so much goes into a craft like that, but it's crazy how Marshawn Lynch, it's such a powerful running back, be like, I don't train. Adrian Peterson, when used to eat like a bunch of junk food, that was always highlighted. It's amazing how they could be that elite. And obviously there's work that goes into it, but how they do some things that like regular people would do, eat junk food and not train and just like skip some workouts and things like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, we are who we are. You talked about Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman used to come into the facility in the morning with McDonald's breakfast. That was like the thing. The years that we went to the Super Bowl, like McDonald's breakfast was like the number one food item in the locker room during those couple years. And guys would take orders and everything, come back with a bunch of hash browns, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So, we talk about these strict diets, and typically that starts to kick in as you get a little older in your career, man. But when you're young and you feeling it, it's whatever.
I'll never forget that game where it was Seahawks and Packers. I was actually at the AFC Championship game, and I was watching the ending of that because I think you guys were the first game. And I was in the radio booth before the Patriots were getting ready, I believe, to play the Colts, I think it was. And I just couldn't believe it. And there's moments like that in the NFL where it looks like one team's going to go, and then something happens, and it's like, oh, my goodness gracious, I can't believe that. You were a part of it. How do you look back at that NFC Championship game up against Green Bay?
Man, that game was crazy. I don't even know what was going on with us offensively and why we just couldn't really get anything going. Respect to Aaron Rodgers and those boys in Green Bay for what they had as a football team. They had some ballers, don't get me wrong, but we couldn't get anything going, on offense. But our team all the time, we were always just like this positive, reinforcing, overly optimistic football team. Coach Pete Carroll kind of trained us in that way, that we just always believed that the miracle is going to happen for us, and it did. And we ended up kicking that onside kick. I forget the tight end's name, but he's supposed to let that ball go by him. That's everybody knows that in an onside kick situation, but he was undisciplined in that particular play, and we end up taking advantage. The ball bounced our way that night.
And then 2 weeks later, you don't need me to remind you what happened right at the goal line, but that was such a huge moment in NFL history. And I've talked about it through the years with guys like Cliff Averill and KJ Wright, and it's been nasty between Richard and also Russ. Like, does that hurt you to see where the relationship is with Russ and some of your former teammates now?
It doesn't really bother me because, I don't really know the details behind it all. You've spoken to those guys, and so I'm sure that they've been a little bit more outspoken in terms of where their may be a rift or not a rift or anything like that. But it's been a lot of years, man, that have kind of passed by. And I think the most important thing, to remember with anybody, that unless something, really, really strong is happened between any two players, that at some point it ends for everybody. We move on and we transition into our next careers. Everybody lives, not to get too deep into this thing, but it comes to an end. And so you don't want, all that stuff to happen, and then you're holding a grudge because of something that's so minor, that doesn't really have a real imprint on life itself.
What was it like to be a teammate of Russell Wilson when you were in Seattle?
It was great. Russ was the ultimate teammate. He used to organize off-season workouts for the offense down in Southern California. We used to go to Hermosa Beach. He organized that whole thing. I remember the first time I had sushi and albacore and all this kind of, what I'm saying? And that was all Russ. Russ put all of that together, created this bond. Not everybody showed up, but it was important for him to connect with the group in that way. And then, I remember when we were down there, he had developed some relationships within the Lakers organization. And I remember the first time I got to see Kobe play live, Russ put that together. The whole offense, really, up at Staples Center. That was 2 years in a row. I got to see Kobe play, and it wasn't like we were sitting in the nosebleeds or anything like I don't know what he did, but we were like row 3, row 4, like watching Kobe, and the Lakers like play at Staples Center. And that was the kind of teammate he was, man. He was one of those guys that really embraced wanting to be a leader and wanted to embrace like sharing experiences with his teammates. And those are the memories that I'll always have about him.
It's kind of crazy, though, as Robert Turbin is here with us. A guy goes from being on the top of the world, and you never know how quickly he could fall off. But once he had his split from Seattle, he was just never that same player. And now people are debating, is Russell Wilson still going to be a guy that goes to the Hall of Fame? Where do you stand on that topic whenever Russ decides to hang it up and then he waits 5 years if he should be a Hall of Famer one day or not?
I mean, I would vote him in the Hall of Fame, but at the same time, I don't really think we all have a true understanding of the criteria of what it takes, to get in. And so it'd be an interesting time, for him when that time comes around. But I think his story is still being written. He hasn't retired or anything like that. Obviously he's a little long in the tooth these days, but anything can happen. That's his mentality. I can tell you that right now. That's what I know about him. And it's been unfortunate what sort of the outlook for him has been from a media standpoint. But when you look at the actual results compared to maybe who he's been replaced with since he's left the Seahawks, statistically, it hasn't really been that much different, for him. I just think that he's been in unfortunate situations where the embracement, if that's even a word, really wasn't quite there for him. But the story's still being written, and we'll see how it plays out.
Does this Seahawks team that is one win away from going to a Super Bowl, does it remind you of some of the Seahawks teams that you played for?
No doubt. These guys are relentless, but more than anything, when you watch them play, you can tell that they're playing for each other. They're a selfless unit out there. And when I was with the Seahawks, that's what it was all about. Until it wasn't. Until some of those egos and things of that nature started creeping in. But at first, man, it was all about the next guy, and that's what today's Seattle team is all about. And I think it's in large part why they're in this position.
Offensively, I'm going to be curious this week because Charbonnet is now out for the season. We know the 1-2 punch of Walker and Charbonnet was such a really good duo together. How do you think they pick up the slack of losing a Charbonnet? Because I turned to a playmaker like a Rashid Shaheed. I looked at how the Patriots used to use Cordell Patterson when he came over, and I would expect him to get a few touches coming up this weekend.
Yeah, you might see that in the game plan. It wouldn't surprise any of us, but Kenneth Walker III is no stranger to carrying a ball 20 plus times in a football game. And this season against the Rams, he's had a lot of success. I think that first game, he went over 100 yards, had a big game, actually, only 11 carries in that matchup, but, really took it to him. And in the second game, he carried the ball 16 times in that matchup, had about 70 yards, scored a touchdown in that game. And so he's been able to find success against this Rams defense this season. And overall, he's been used to being a guy that is the bell cow, for lack of a better way. He's been the starter before, and I think they'll still lean heavily on his skill set.
You look at Sam Darnold, people called him a bust, which was fair. Then he turns it around. The last 2 years, he's been a really good quarterback. Now the conversation is, how is Sam going to play in a big game with how last year ended? How do you think Sam Darnold's going to perform coming up on Sunday?
I think he'll be fine. I think he's a prime example of, a guy, you can't put a timeline on a player's development. Like, I remember after my rookie year, Coach Tom Cable was our run game coordinator. If you remember, he used to be the head coach of the
Raiders,
Oakland Raiders, when he was there. And I remember going into OTAs my second season, and he comes up to me at practice and he says, "Hey, Turbo, you had a nice rookie year. Most players, this is when they make the biggest jump in their careers. It's from year 1 to year 2, and you really get to sort of identify what type of player you're going to have." But that didn't happen for me. My biggest jump was like year 4 to year 5. That's when that's when I started to really feel, like I was sort of taking those next steps in my career. And it wasn't until 2016 where I led the Colts in touchdowns that season, where, I really sort of had a breakout year, per se. And you can say the same thing about Kyle Pitts now. He just finished his 4th season. It was year 3 to year 4 for him to be able to sort of take that jump in his career. So that timeline, it just happens differently for everybody, and your situation around you is a big component of that as well.
But what's your best guess, Robert Turbin? Because we've seen these two teams play twice. They're no strangers to one another, beat NFC West foes. The first time, or one of the times they played, Darnold threw 4 interceptions. They missed that kick at the end, which they could have won it from 61 yards out. And then the other time, it was a big Rams lead, and the Seahawks came on back, and they ended up winning the game in overtime. On Sunday, how do you see this one playing on out between the Seahawks and the Rams, part 3?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks win this football game. They got the home crowd. The 12s are going to be rocking. You already know. But this is a sound football team. They don't make a lot of mistakes, especially on defense. They don't get penalized a lot. I mean, they play real good, disciplined football. And I think that gives them the edge against a Rams team that sometimes is a little fickle with their discipline on both sides of the football, whether it's a break in coverage by their secondary or, some sort of offsides or holding penalty, on the offensive side of the football. I think they'll generate enough pressure against Matthew Stafford to make him a little bit uncomfortable. And so, we'll see what happens, but I got the Seahawks.
When you're in those team meetings, get into the AFC Championship game with Robert Turbin right now, and Bo Nix is now out for the year, and they're quickly getting Jarrett Stidham ready, who's been in the league for a few years. But what do you think that's like this week on the offensive side of the ball for the Broncos getting ready for this one?
Man, you faking it until you make it. That's what it is. And that's the truth. They can say all they want in the media. They're saying all the right things, and that's great. But, I've been a part of teams where we lost our franchise quarterback. I was with the Colts when Andrew Luck got hurt. And as much as we believed in Jacoby Brissett and Scott Tolzien, who was one of our other backup quarterbacks, it was just different. It was different because Andrew Luck was such a special playmaker and player. I was with the Cowboys when Tony Romo hurt his back, and Matt Castle ended up being, the starter. And look, Matt Castle was a guy who, led the Patriots to the playoffs one year. But the fact of the matter is, we lost Tony Romo, and it just wasn't the same in those huddles, the adjustments at the line of scrimmage, the command, in the huddle, and everybody believes and everybody's playing for each other. But the fact of the matter is it's different. And so the Broncos, look, I get it. You're one game away. You're going to say all the right things. but there's going to be a drop off, and everybody's going to see it on Sunday.
Last thing I'll ask you. Philip Rivers today is interviewing for the Bills head coaching job. What do you make of that one?
I say congratulations to to Philip Rivers. Go get it, man. Go get it. The NFL is it's pro sports in general, man. It's a funky world. JJ Redick becoming the head coach of the Lakers. Things happen, man. And sometimes organizations like to, do things that are a little bit outside of the box. It sucks for other coaches who've been on the grind for 15, 20, 25 years, trying to make their way into the head coaching ranks, at some point. But sometimes, man, it just happens for you. You want to think a little bit outside of the box. And so I personally, I like it. We'll see what happens.
I don't know if this will resonate with you because, right, you had Pete, but I feel like coaching now, it's so different where like people just look for CEOs, and I get it. There's young, innovative offensive minds that get hired like McVay, but I really feel like the characteristics people look for right now are player coaches that aren't doormats. And that's kind of like what Pete Carroll, I thought Pete Carroll was a player's coach, and you guys liked him, but when he spoke, he meant business. That's what I think coaching really has become now.
Well, I think it's also relatability too. A lot of these coaches that are getting head coaching jobs, you're seeing a lot more former players, in these spots, and they've got some youth to them. And so, there's a relatability factor that I think really helps culminate a good football team that can sustain itself over a long time. And so we'll see if that trend continues. But yeah, I wouldn't mind having Philip Rivers as my head coach. I know our offense is going to be crazy.
He's Robert Turbin, Super Bowl champion. Now does a great job with Sirius XM NFL Radio. Robert, appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping on.
Anytime. Thank you.
All righty, there he is. Let's do this real quick. Because Ravens yesterday, it came out that they're hiring Jesse Minter. Let me take you back to January 6th, a few weeks ago, where I put out a little Twitter video. And on that Twitter video, I talked about John Harbaugh getting fired, where he should go, and then also who was going to replace John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. Let's take a look back at that.
Can't say I'm stunned, but wowie. John Harbaugh is out with the Baltimore Ravens. Unbelievable run. It was time for a split. He will get a job immediately in this hiring cycle. The first thought is that the New York Giants should do whatever it takes to get John Harbaugh. That's an organization that needs a professional coach and an organization that needs some stability. Now, what's next for the Ravens? My first thought was Marcus Freeman, but he just said he was staying at Notre Dame. So I could see them kind of going the Mike McDonald approach, also staying in the Harbaugh family tree and going with Jesse Minter, knows the Ravens pretty well. I'll say Jesse Minter to the Ravens is the immediate prediction, and John Harbaugh to the New York Football Giants.
So 5 jobs have already filled. Dolphins with Jeff Hastins with Robert Saleh, and the Ravens with Jesse Minter. So there are still 5 more jobs that are out there as there's 10 in the market. I'm going to say, and I may be wrong on this one, I'm going to go the Bills are going to hire Brian Daboll. I don't know how quickly I would personally give Brian Daboll a head coaching job, but Josh Allen's sitting in on these coaching interviews, and Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator for Josh Allen. So Steelers are a legacy franchise. The Shula family is a legacy name. Shula's done a really good job with the Rams as their defensive coordinator. I'm going to say the Steelers bring in Chris Shula. The Browns. I don't think a lot of people want this Browns coaching job. And I saw Mike McDaniels interviewing for the Bills job. He told the Browns basically thanks, but no thanks. Minter pulled out of the Browns, and then he ended up moving on. So I'm looking at this when I just take a glance at the hiring cycle. I look at the Browns. I think they're going to do one of two things. I'm going to say they either promote Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, or here's a name, Grant Udinski, who is the Jaguars offensive coordinator. He is currently 30 years old. 30 years old. He's younger than me. I think that's who's going to be the next Browns head coach. I'm then going to go the Raiders, that they're going to take Clint Kubiak. And I know he's the betting favorite right now, the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that Brady's going to attract someone there. They tried to go get Liam Cohen a year ago. They tried to get Ben Johnson, a year ago, and it just didn't work. I think with Mendoza, Genti, and Bowers, with Brady now taking more of a role there, I'm going to say Clint Kubiak goes with the Raiders. And then I'm going to go the Cardinals landing Vance Joseph. So those are going to be my 5 predictions. Bills, Brian Daboll. Steelers, Chris Shula. Browns, Grant Udinski. Raiders, Clint Kubiak. And the Cardinals getting Vance Joseph. But let's go to Baldy. Here is Brian Baldinger from the NFL Network. He does a podcast, obviously, with Odyssey now. And I love Baldy. I do games with him on Compass Media Network. And Baldy had this intel on Mario Cristobal potentially being linked to the Steelers.
I hear, I'm not out here trying to play reporter or doing any of that nonsense, but I hear the Steelers are very interested in Mario Cristobal. And I think the coach of the University of Miami, I think Mario Cristobal actually would really translate to the NFL. I watched his practice in the spring. Jason Taylor coaching the defensive line. They got 2 number 1 picks on that defensive line. Mario Cristobal coaching the offensive line. Their right tackle is going to be a first-round pick. There's talent everywhere on that team. But the way that Mario coached that team reminded me of what old school coaches used to do. They're limited in the NFL, how many times you can put pads on and hit and all that stuff, but they're going to get after it like they did. And I think Mario could actually transfer to the NFL.
I have a tough time seeing Mario Cristobal coaching in the NFL. And I understand Baldy, offensive lineman, Mario Cristobal, well respected in that world. But this was worded very particularly. It wasn't Mario's interested, and maybe he is. It was that the Steelers are interested in him. So I look at that and I say to myself, does he have any NFL experience? And he doesn't. He's at Miami, Rutgers, Miami, FIU, Alabama, Oregon, and Miami. Now, you don't need to have NFL coaching experience to be an NFL head coach. But is like Mario Cristobal, I think he's a good coach. I think before this year started, people are like, yeah, he's good, he's solid. Now people are going to talk more highly about him because he got Miami to a national championship game. He does a good job up against Ohio State, beat them at Oregon, obviously beat them this year at Miami. I don't love the prospects of Mario Cristobal going to the NFL, but you got 10 jobs that are open. I would think the Steelers are still going to be attractive based off their brand. But Garrett, I was stunned by that when I saw that circulating the web yesterday. That like one thing if you're like, oh, Mario Cristobal's interested in coaching, like sure, I'm interested in going on a date with Beyonce. But Mario Cristobal, the Steelers being interested with him, not that he's some schlub, I just was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I think that's one where like you just throw names out there at times and just kind of hope for the best. I don't see him. I don't think he has any interest in going right now into the NFL. You have Miami in a really good spot in the NIL world. You have the backing that you need. You're going to get the money you need anytime at Miami. You have a corner on the market when it comes to getting elite quarterbacks out of the transfer portal. You don't really develop them, which is something I'm kind of interested to see how long they can run that route. But I could see him doing it later on down the road, but right now with being so close, I think he would want to win a championship at Miami before he left to even consider another job, period, whether it was another college or going to the NFL.
You know what I would compare it to? Marcus Freeman.
Very similar. I'll give you that.
And I think the Notre Dame job is obviously better than the Miami job. But Mario Cristobal, what you factor in, this is his school too. So Marcus Freeman got to a championship game last year, didn't make the college football playoff this year. If Marcus Freeman wanted a job in the NFL, he could get one tomorrow. Mario Cristobal, though, I don't know if he could get a job tomorrow. But according to Baldy, and Baldy's not a reporter, but Baldy is connected and, you know, he has great insight on the NFL. He's been hearing, I don't think Baldy just throws it out there for clicks. That's not what Baldy's ever been about. Baldy's all about the football. He's been hearing that the Steelers are interested. But I do think that's going to be a similar situation with how close that they just were and the way that that program is building. And plus, it's also his school. I know Marcus Freeman went to Ohio State. I'm going to say that Mario Cristobal stays at Miami as well. We'll take a timeout. Zach Gelb here. We come on back.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, come on in.
Thanks. I'm having an issue with Ralph.
With Ralph?
He keeps stealing my lunch.
He's just researching new flavors.
That is slow smoked turkey.
Ralph steals my lunch all the time. You get used to it.
He also peed on my bag.
He is warming up to you. You know, starting a new job is a big change. I want you to think about how you can be more accommodating to Ralph. We're all co-owners here.
If I'm only wearing one suit this summer, it has to be Tuileries Performance Linen. It's wrinkle resistant, machine washable, and built with stretch and breathability that actually moves with you. It'll keep you cool, sharp, and stress-free at your next event.
What does being different mean to me? You know, that is an interesting question.
Because there really isn't one way. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it.
But love is passion. Someone you can't live without.
What do you want? You know, what's that really good non-alcoholic beer I keep hearing about?
Do you have that really great non-alcoholic beer that I keep seeing?
You mean athletic? You're looking at it.
It's athletic. Ask for it.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. Football Friday, Conference Championship weekend. If Ty Dunn is reporting about you, expect there to be some story. If I got some report that Ty Dunn was digging to some people close to me about me, I would say, okay, I got to move out of the country. He does a phenomenal job. GoLongTD.com, and he's a good friend. Ty, how are you?
I'm great. Little do you know, when we got beers in New Orleans last year at the Super Bowl, I was really doing some digging. I was doing some investigative work on you, Zach Gelb. So head on a swivel, my friend.
Yeah, I am very nervous now to talk to you. So Philip Rivers is interviewing with the Buffalo Bills today, and no one saw that one coming. How realistic is it in your estimation that Philip Rivers could be coaching Josh Allen as the head football coach of the Bills next year?
Never say never, I suppose. We've seen crazier things, right? As all of our fathers have told us watching these sporting events. I can't see it. Can't see Philip Rivers coaching the Buffalo Bills. I love it, though. I don't know why more teams don't do this. You know, we saw it out of the Chicago Bears last year when they were probably dead set on Ben Johnson all the way. They interviewed like half the league. Why wouldn't you, if you've got the resources to fly these coaches in and fly yourself out to see them? They were down there in Florida today for candidates. Why wouldn't you have as many football conversations as you possibly can? Like, only good things can happen. Remember a couple years ago when Bill Belichick was a free agent and he's only talking to the Atlanta Falcons? I was stunned that more teams didn't at least sit down with Belichick, even if you have no intention to hire the guy, to pick the brain of the best football coach ever, arguably. So Philip Rivers, illustrious career, coached a little high school ball, came back, played a little bit more. Why wouldn't you pick his brain if you're Buffalo?
Right now, who would be your best guess on who gets the Bills job? For me, it's Brian Daboll.
Gun to the head, I'd probably say Brian Daboll too. I've done a lot of reporting on the relationship between him and Josh Allen. Back to the series we talked about in December of 2023. You know, it was an unbelievably close father-son-like bond between these two on the field, off the field. Daboll just understood Josh Allen at a deep level. And I think that when he left, maybe a little part of Josh Allen left with him too. I think it was really sad to see him go. So, I mean, that makes you think that he'd be the leader in the clubhouse. But then also you have to remember that Brandon Beane is really close with Joe Shane, the Giants GM. I'm sure he knows where all the bodies are buried out there. However, that thing went sideways in New Jersey, the interpersonal relationships, remember the Wink Martindale feud, game management. I mean, there's some pretty rough moments for Brian Daboll late in these games. It's one thing to develop a quarterback, to be really close with the quarterback, and they've got Josh Allen in on these interviews for a reason, but the job is more than that. And I think that Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula understand that the job is more than that. So I'd say Daboll with a little bit of hesitancy. I tell you what, I wouldn't just look past the Mike McDaniel stuff. I think that Mike McDaniel and Josh Allen could be fun as hell together.
That's a tough sell to me, though. Mike McDaniel can't win a game in a cold, and you play in damn Buffalo.
Who was his quarterback, though?
True, Tua. No, it's fair.
I think, he'd have to have a good staff. You need a good defensive coordinator to figure out the personnel now. The personnel was to fit Sean McDermott's scheme, which as a very specific type. I was just talking to an assistant GM a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, you look at that Bills defense, it's clear that they need a certain height, weight, speed measurement where, would this player fit in other schemes? Not necessarily. That would worry me a little bit for Buffalo moving forward. But yeah, they have to operate with some urgency, Zach, because you want to interview all these guys. You want to make the best possible decision, but they've got to make decisions too. Brian Daboll, he could be the OC of the Tennessee Titans. Is he going to wait around forever? Mike McDaniel is already the OC for the LA Chargers. Like, what's he going to do? I think that, yeah, you want to talk to all these people. Maybe there's a Clint Kubiak opportunity in the future. You got to pull the trigger on somebody so then they can fill out a staff too. I was talking to an offensive assistant today for, say, an NFC team, and he's kind of in limbo. He's waiting for, one of his buddies to become a coordinator somewhere, and he's got a couple kids. We forget that aspect of this all.
I'm glad you brought up Clint Kubiak because right now I would predict that he's going to be the next coach of the Raiders. And I get it. You have the number 1 overall pick. Brady's running the show there. You got Ashton Genty. You got Brock Bowers. But, like, if I'm Clint Kubiak and you could get the Bills job, I'd much rather go coach Josh Allen in a division where you're only really competing against one other team, and that's the Patriots, where if you go to the AFC West, you're 4th, and you're looking up at 3 teams right now that are all very good, even with Kansas City just missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Zach. I don't know why any coach would go anywhere else but the Buffalo Bills. And everybody lost their damn minds over the press conference. And, oh, my God, how could you go to Orchard Park, New York after all of that? I don't know, man. I think we all take press conferences a little too seriously. I mean, I remember Rex Ryan standing up there and he tapped the mic and said, "Is this thing on? It's about to be." And then he blew everybody's socks off. He's eating chicken wings at the bar around the corner for an SI cover shoot. He could do no wrong, man. And it didn't mean a damn thing. Like, if Keon Coleman can't really handle that, look, it's not ideal. Ideally, your owner isn't butting in to interrupt the GM and say, look, the coaches wanted this guy, not the GM. But those are words. And he is being discussed as a bust because he kind of has been a bust.
Yeah.
He didn't set his alarm and he missed a meeting and then he missed a second meeting and he got in the doghouse. So it's on Keon Coleman to have that wake-up call. Long-winded way of saying, like, this job is desirable. You get to coach Josh Allen. You're moving into a new stadium. Everybody should want this job, and that's the sense I get around the league.
I think the Bills took too much of a beating the last 48 to 72 hours where, don't get me wrong, the owner interrupts him, says basically this was McDermott that drafted Keon Coleman. It wasn't Bean, and I get it. It doesn't look good because of all those videos that circulate where it's like, not so fast, my friends. Brandon Bean was good on it. But outside of that, like, I understand there's work to do with this roster, but you either have a quarterback in this league or you don't. And as long as Josh Allen's there and he's happy, and they're letting him sit in on these meetings right now, so it appears that he's happy and he's not trying to get out of there anytime soon. I don't understand. Like, I saw Benjamin Solak went on ESPN, and I kind of fought back at this. And I'm a Patriot fan saying this, that, like, people go, oh, this job isn't as attractive as it seems. Like, you have Josh Allen. Like, that's enough for me.
Yeah. And it's a talented roster. I mean, they were talented enough to beat the Chiefs in the regular season 5 times before losing them to them 4 times in the playoffs. To me, that's coaching. They went 0-6 in overtime games with Josh Allen, 3 of them in the playoffs. To me, that's coaching. But a defensive-minded coach who gets absolutely blown out on the defensive side of the ball, 33 points per game, the last 6 playoff losses. It's coaching to me is the common denominator here. It's not a perfect roster. The wide receiver position went through injuries, and it all kind of stems from the offseason. The WGR interview that Bean did does not look good in retrospect. All of that is true, but there is more than enough here, man. James Cook led the league in rushing. It's a top 5 offensive line. You've got 3 good tight ends. And number 1 through 10 reasons why any coach wants this job is you've got the best player in the league in Josh Allen, who's still in his prime. So credit to the Bills for finally, once and for all, ripping that Band-Aid off. That is Sean McDermott, who's held this team back.
They do need to go get another offensive playmaker, though, and it has to be at the wide receiver position. Is that right? They could have got Jalen Waddle at the deadline, and Bean just didn't want to give up a first-round pick. Is that reporting accurate that I read?
Not from what I heard. I did some digging into that, and the Jets didn't want to engage at all with the Bills. And around the league, the sense I got is Miami was kind of like dragging Buffalo along to maybe leverage some other deals they had going on, but they weren't realistically going to trade Jalen Waddle in the division to the Buffalo Bills. Asked a pretty well-placed source about that whole situation that you referenced, that the hang-up was a first-rounder in 26 versus 27. I was told that was false, that it never was serious. If it was the case, obviously it looks bad because it shouldn't matter what year the first-round pick is in. I do think that the GM has done everything in his power to get weapons, and he has just swung and missed. Now, is that his fault that Amari Cooper didn't really work out last year and Joshua Palmer didn't really work out this year? He had an ankle injury too. Or that Elijah Moore catches 120 balls back-to-back seasons for the lowly Cleveland Browns but does nothing in Buffalo? There's a lot of examples that you can point to. I don't know. You watch the Bills offense, Joe Brady in the run game, incredible. There's a reason they had James Cook leading the NFL in rushing. The pass game concepts leave a little bit to be desired. That's not me talking. That's some people around the league. When you look at how these receivers get open, it's not exactly Kendrick Bourne in San Francisco catching the ball from Mac Jones. So I think it can be done. And I think that's why they'll kind of gravitate towards somebody who can do some dynamic things in the passing game.
I always remind myself that the internet, especially Twitter, isn't a reflection of reality. And for the last 2 years, people wanted Sean McDermott out. I've always appreciated the job Sean McDermott did in Buffalo because that team never made the playoffs, and then he made the playoffs 8 out of the last 9 seasons. However, when you have Josh Allen, you got to take that next step. And I get it. This is the rare instance where this playoff game, I know we could talk about the officiating, and I thought it was a catch, but this one was on Josh. It's the first time I felt that way when the Bills lost. But you're not going to get rid of the quarterback. You'd be the dumbest team in the league. So I thought it was time for the coach to go. But I see this petition online that's like 45,000 signatures. It's like, bring back, Sean McDermott. Do you think most Bills fans understand it, are on board with Sean McDermott getting sent packing?
I think maybe reality is setting in a little bit with time. Emotions are unbelievably high. And look, I lived it to an extent a couple years ago when I dropped that series, and Sean McDermott gives a very emotional press conference, owns up to the 9/11 speech. And I could feel it here locally. I live here. The fans rallied behind him. They get the win against the Chiefs. Brandon Beane gives him the game ball. And it's real. It's authentic. He wants to deliver a Super Bowl to this city. Fast forward 2 years later, they lose to Denver in controversial fashion. What does Sean McDermott do at the podium? I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. Maybe he knew in the back of his mind he was going to get fired. Either way,
that one never made sense to me. But him saying, I'm standing up for Buffalo in that spot. What are people knocking the Bills left and right? Is it the Bills always get screwed from that one? I was watching that press conference, and I thought he was getting fired when I saw Josh Allen afterwards, and he looked as if he just lost a family member. And I saw that earlier this year. I was in the locker room. Falcons and Bills, and just a regular season loss for a team that's been through some heartbreak. And I just sensed a blank stare from Josh, and he just seemed so dejected. So I think that reality did set in for Josh when this year they were supposed to go, and there's no Mahomes, there's no Allen, there's no Burrow. But that McDermott line after the game, that was one of those moments I scratched my head and I'm like, I don't really get what you're doing at the podium.
Well, here's whether it was his intent or not. His emotions aligned beautifully with the emotions of Western New Yorkers. He said what they were feeling. He was pissed. They were pissed. They kind of threw themselves behind him. And this is on the heels of McDermott really taking some shots at the GM through the course of the year, bringing up Jacoby Myers multiple times ahead of that Jags playoff game. That's no coincidence. Like he's basically letting everybody know, hey, this roster could have been a little better if I got a little help. And I think it's kind of been this slow, gradual buildup that really sped up with that loss to where Sean McDermott is the one that a lot of people wanted to stay around here to the extreme. I wrote this in a story at my site, Zach. Like my kids, we had HR puffin stuff from the 70s on. It's insane. It's like a psychedelic. I don't know what drugs those guys are on. Do you know what I'm talking about? So I remember watching as a kid. I think I wrote like that show is based in more reality than what we're seeing right now in Buffalo. The petitions. I turn on the local news. I kid you not. Local news. They interviewed a sports psychologist to see how the players will cope with the grief of losing Sean McDermott, as if he died. I mean, it's on the most popular. I love people there. I'm not going to say the station. I'm not going to say the people.
And no offense, he's not Lombardi. All right,
insane. He's not Lombardi. He has been described. I mean, the way people are describing Sean McDermott, and the way the emotion has been, you would think he's a combination of Vince Lombardi and Mother Teresa right now. It is insane. I mean, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, but I think time will knock some sense into people and they'll realize, look, it's been 9 years. This is what all teams do. Only Bill Cowher, Tom Landry, and throw Hank Stram in there, even though he won an AFL title. Those are the only coaches who won their first Super Bowl with a team in year 9 or beyond. The bucket of coaches who weren't able to get it done, the Schottenheimers, the Marvin Lewises, the Wayne Fonces, the Denny Atlick, Denny Greens, that's the longer list. That's the McDermott list.
And also,
to move on.
It's one thing to keep on getting close and losing, but when you have names associated with games like 13 seconds, was it a catcher or an interception? Tyler Bass missing a kick. Mentally, this one, all the others, I wasn't really concerned how the Bills would bounce back. This one, I am curious how they're going to bounce back because this year it just felt different. Like this even felt worse after the game this go around than it did 13 seconds. Not the way that they lost it, but just in the feel, hearing the players speak after the game.
No doubt about it. I think that's what Terry Pagula was trying to convey when he was bringing that scene to life at the press conference, that he approaches Josh Allen and Josh Allen can't even acknowledge him there, that he's so dejected. And he's been in these locker rooms now 8 times, right? 6 of the last 8 as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. You're looking in the eyes of these players, these coaches, this team that in his opinion was talented enough to win it all, and they don't get it done year to year to year. And you mentioned 13 seconds. I've done a lot of reporting on that game, talked to a lot of people involved. And that was on Sean McDermott, overruling the coordinator who wanted the squib kick. Sean wants a touchback. Takes over the play calling from Leslie Frazier. Kodak timeouts before each play. The cornerbacks are lined up in another state. And then in overtime, you're just run over. And he didn't take any accountability after that game. He blamed everybody else. He told his coaches, you guys got to figure out what went wrong here and come back and we got to fix it. This traumatic thing happens. It's not dealt with appropriately. And it lingered. I talked to people this week, Zach, high up in this organization, who brought up 13 seconds without me touching the subject as a dark cloud over this franchise. I don't blame them. They haven't really been able to forgive McDermott for that, whether it's players, coaches, other parts of the building. That is real. And you see that throughout the NFL. Legion of Boom Seahawks, they won it all. The next year, Pete Carroll throws the ball at the 1 yard line. Richard Sherman and those guys, they'll never forgive him for that.
So it's funny with the 13 seconds, a video popped up today and I was rewatching it and how those corners were like hugging the sidelines and opened up the middle of the field for Kelsey. Never made any sense to me. Is there anything more before we get to conference championship weekend. Ty Dunn, go subscribe, golongtd.com. Excellent work. Is there anything more with McDermott getting fired? Because to me, it's okay. The guy got so close, but yet so far. Was there more to this story?
Yeah, I think so. This is where I got to tell everybody, golongtd.com to subscribe. We got it there. Why Sean McDermott was fired. He was never fully aligned with Josh Allen. Not until it was too late when he was. Let's just say that. I think he finally realized in 2024 MVP season, you know what? Let's not just take these little shots and at the podium, at the quarterback who really makes this thing go. You know, McDermott ended the drought, cleaned up the culture. It was a mess with Rex Ryan before. Deserves all the flowers in the world for all of that. But then you've got this superstar quarterback. The calculus changes at that point. The organization should run through that superstar quarterback from 2020 on. I think what I was told really is that McDermott kind of viewed the Bills through the lens of McDermott, his process, his culture, and didn't really embrace Josh Allen and everything Josh Allen is. And that's like a 13-year-old kid that wants to run through your face and make inappropriate jokes in the locker room and just have fun out there. Like their personalities could have not been any more different. Now, we write that series, and now all of a sudden we're seeing McDermott's personality and a lot of Q&As, a lot of features. Hell, I sat down with him for an hour in his office. He's asking Josh to do snow angels on the field after they beat San Francisco. To his credit, I think he tried to maybe get closer to the quarterback, and I think some of that's real, but it was too late in year 8 of 9. They were not fully aligned, and you know what? That's why you're seeing Josh Allen in these interviews.
Is Josh Allen basically going to pick the next coach?
I don't think that. That's a great question, Zach, because he shouldn't. Right? At the end of the day, he still is a player, and that's that tricky balance. He deserves a say, not the final say. You know, that's on Terry Pegula. It ends him, the owner. But I think Terry Pegula does understand it's all about Josh. So he'll definitely take his opinion. He'll weigh that very heavily, I would think, and then pull the trigger here. It's going to be fascinating, man. Is it Dable who worked with him all those years and they had this great off the field relationship in addition to everything on the field? Is it McDaniel who worked magic in Miami with an inferior quarterback? What could he do with a Josh Allen? I know everybody's kind of like poo-pooing that. I would love to see that combination, really. Is it a Kubiak? Is it a 30-year-old from Jacksonville? There's a lot of options. All of a sudden, I think this is a really interesting pool of coaches.
The reason why I asked that is it's always a slippery slope. Like, I think he should have input on the next coach. But, like, I remember Rodgers at the end in Green Bay where Rodgers did that passionate speech and everyone was loving it. And he's mentioning all these players of the Packers lore of the past and how poorly they were treated. I'm like, does anyone look what happened to those players once they left Green Bay? They all, like, stunk. All their careers were over. Some of those guys, I know I'm friendly with them, but that gets a little bit tricky when the quarterback is making decisions like that with construction of the roster and then also who could be coaching the roster.
You just nailed it. I was around those Packers and talked to probably some of the same players you did. And I'm watching that live and I'm thinking, Aaron, you're not really making your point here. Right? A lot of these guys, they got that next contract and they faded off into oblivion. I get it. You want to stand up for those aging teammates, but that's why Ted Thompson was one of the better GMs, as he kind of knew when to cut bait. Brian Gutekunst, same deal. Yeah, man, it's such a fine line, right? Like you got to take your quarterback's input. He makes everything go here, but he shouldn't be the commander in chief on all transactions. Also, that's why you empowered Brandon Beane. He got a promotion to oversee the whole football operation. And I think Terry Pegula is probably going to have a lot more say than anybody thinks too. He owns the team and somehow this group together, they have to do the right thing. But it's, I will say though, on the heels of a decade with Sean McDermott, where Josh Allen barely ever spoke up and he wasn't really listened to, this is a positive step forward.
All right, before we let you run, Ty Dunn, golongtd.com. Excellent appearance right here. Zach Gelb on 365 Sports. AFC Championship game. Patriots and Broncos. Most people are picking the Patriots. Are you going to roll with Jarrett Stidham? How do you see this playing on out?
All I hope is for Sean Payton to stop referring to Jarrett Stidham as Stiddy. A little too close to Diddy, I don't like that. do your quarterback a solid here, Sean. Quit calling him Stiddy. How about Stid City? I don't know. There's got to be something.
You know what? I have not heard anyone make that take until you said it, but you're 100% right. That's all I'm going to be thinking about now on Sunday. Is it Stiddy or is it Diddy?
I know. I mean, come on, Sean. I mean, I think the Patriots roll. I don't know. Denver's at home, Mile High, tough place to play. The Bills were the better team in that game. Bad calls, but they also gave it away. And I mean, James Cook, that fumble early on too was costly. They had the foot on the jugular. I wasn't really impressed by Denver. I am impressed by New England. Spent some time around that team ahead of their divisional game against the Texans. They have it all. They've got Tom Brady 2.0 and Drake May. Dude's a stud. They've got the defense. Mike Vrabel just handpicked these guys in free agency. Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, just old school throwback butt kickers at all three levels. They can run the ball too. Ramondre Stevenson. It's crazy. This team, it really looked like they were going to be 2 years away, maybe a year away. They're ready to win right now. I think they get to the Super Bowl. I think they win easily in the AFC Championship game.
And then the NFC Championship game, we clearly see these two teams play twice, being NFC West foes. One time, Sam Darnold threw 4 picks. They still had a chance to go win the game at the end. They missed a 61-yard field goal. Another time, the Rams were up big in the fourth quarter, and then the Seahawks, because the Rams have been able to do this a few times this year, the Rams choked the lead. Seahawks won the game in overtime. What do you think is the way that Rams-Seahawks Part 3 plays on out?
This is where, like, the week in between games, it's a little paralysis by analysis. Granted, I've kind of been hurling myself into everything Bills and McDermott, but even with this matchup, early on in the week, you saw what Seattle did to San Francisco, just a total obliteration, all 3 phases from the word go with Rashid Shaheed's touchdown. And I'm thinking, of course, Seattle's going to roll. I mean, the Rams they really struggled for stretches in that game against Chicago. But then you really look at that Chicago game and a lot of self-inflicted wounds. You know, Sean McVay, he's a genius. He earns that reputation, but he just got away from the run. I mean, they were doing those combo blocks. I think at the start of the second half, it's working. And yet you've got your soon-to-be 38-year-old quarterback dropping back to pass against this Dennis Allen. I mean, Dennis Allen and the Bears are like balls to the wall. There is no tomorrow. Blitzing the hell out of this guy, seeing if he wants to play in sub-zero temperatures. And it got bad. And they almost gave it away, you know, at the end of the game with the Caleb Williams throw, all the magical plays that we've seen from him all year.
I still can't believe Johnson didn't go for 2, by the way.
I know it. That's going to eat at him all season, isn't it? But they were stopped at the goal line the drive before, so I do 4
get times.
it. right. He was a little spooked. I think, though, that Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, you listen to him talk this week, it really sounds like they took ownership. Yeah, talk about accountability and ownership. You didn't see out of McDermott in 13 seconds. And again and again and again, says he should have ran the ball more. He was kicking himself over the overtime first drive. Was it, inches to go? They weren't able to get it done. Stafford missing throws, owned up to it. They're too talented. So when it's not sub-zero, when it's not windy and it's not cold, even if it's Seattle, even if it's against a really good defense, I kind of like the number 1 offense in the league all of a sudden. I think the Rams win this in a nail-biter.
He's Ty Dunn, GoLongTD.com, one of the best people covering the NFL as we know it right now. Ty, appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, Zach. Anytime, man.
There you go. Ty Dunn joining us right here on 365 Sports. A few things from that on the Bills side. I think the most interesting thing is that Ty said Josh Allen and Sean McDermott weren't truly aligned. That's interesting to me. And Ty is as well-informed on the Buffalo Bills as anybody. I also think the pushback that the way it was presented, that the Bills could have got Jalen Waddle, and him saying not really how it happened, that did make sense to me too. Because if you're Miami, why would you give the Bills Jalen Waddle? And if the Bills had Jalen Waddle and he was healthy, I think the Bills are probably in the Super Bowl. So even though you're getting back a rich return, why would you actually trade Jalen Waddle to the Buffalo Bills inside the AFC East and have to see him twice a year for the foreseeable future? I do agree with Ty there. I think the Bills were getting used by the Miami Dolphins. And in terms of the next coach, Josh Allen's having a lot to say. The question is how much say. Does he actually make the decision? And I lean that he's basically making the decision. Sure, it's ultimately Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula, but I think Josh Allen, his voice and his input as he's sitting on these meetings and who he says he wants to be the next head coach, that's who I think it's going to be. And right now I would lean Brian Daboll. Even though I wouldn't hire Brian Daboll as the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills, that's where I think the Bills are going to go. But I wonder if Phillip Rivers has a legitimate shot here. They are interviewing Phillip Rivers. Now, I think it was the Texans a few years ago. They were interviewing McCown. And a lot of people believe they wanted to hire him, but then they didn't. They hired it was David Culley. Oh, they had back-to-back one and dones. Oh, and Lovie Smith. So I forget which year. I think it may have been the first year they wanted McCown, and then the second go around, it just didn't happen, and they end up hiring DeMeco Ryans, and obviously that worked. I think Rivers has a shot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he is going to be the next head coach. But if Josh's input is as big as what we are led on to be, where he's sitting in the meetings, I think there's a chance that Rivers could be the next coach. I'm not going to put it high. But if you tell me that it's in that 0 to 5% range, I think it's a little bit higher than that. I think it's closer to 10% than it is to 0. That's the way that I would put it on Phillip Rivers being the next head football coach of the Buffalo Bills. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, it is conference championship weekend. I'll give you my full prediction on Pats and Broncos, also Seahawks and Rams, and also we'll get you up to date on our poll question. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
What I love most about playing basketball is the competition. I really just like being shifty, mastering hesitation moves, changing direction, building chemistry with new teammates. If you're not having fun while you're playing, it's no point in playing the game. You know what to do. Escape Basics. Pair of Thieves quick dry underwear. It wicks away sweat and helps keep you dry. You looking forward to fishing season?
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
I'm here to work out with you.
We did not put this little cookie cutter program together.
I'm in there with you, sweating, yelling, doing the damn thing.
Transformed by Core Home Fitness.
A secret, I travel internationally every year. I struggle with insomnia both at home and especially in hotels. This was life-changing. It's called Fly Kit. My favorite aspect of the Fly Kit is it tells you when to sleep.
Dude, check out this robe. This is the dude robe. It's perfect for after the shower, gym, or even the beach. This thing is awesome. It also has this super premium towel lining to dry you off right away. Dude, what are you waiting for? Get yourself a dude robe today.
At Dreamy, we believe that life can be upgraded in comfort, convenience, and joy. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
We'll get to the poll question in just a second. I will then give you my predictions for conference championship weekend. But let me just play two clips right here. We played you the clip yesterday of Sean Payton basically saying his message to Broncos fans is be loud. You'll have 2 weeks to get ready for the next one. Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte did take to his locker room, and he did talk to reporters there. And here is how Kayshon Boutte responded to what Sean Payton had to say.
You guys need any extra motivation, but did you see the Sean Payton quote insinuating that Denver fans will have some extra rest for the Super Bowl?
Nah, I ain't never seen
Yeah,
it.
he said they have 2 weeks to rest up for the Super Bowl, basically insinuating
Yeah, nah, I
that
ain't
Super
seen
Bowl.
it.
Does that matter to you guys at all?
Get rest in Cancun, too, at the end of the day. So it is what it is.
That's a great line. You could rest in Cancun, too. So I like that from Kayshon Boutte, who made an unbelievable catch down the right sideline. One-handed snag in the snow. Drake made a Kayshon Boutte, the Patriots' victory up against the Houston Texans. I didn't think we'd be talking about Sharon Moore today. Like, remember him, the coach, obviously from Michigan, that was their head coach for 2 years, then got fired, had that whole situation where he was cheating on his wife with his assistant, allegedly. And then once that got out and he was going to get fired, allegedly, I just want to cover my basis on the legal side. I don't want any litigious situations here, especially on a Friday. And then he allegedly went to her home and threatened to kill himself. And before he would kill himself, would kill her with like a butter knife or something like that was the report. Well, Sharon Moore was in court yesterday. And Sharon Moore is obviously facing charges, which is felony home invasion and stalking. And he faces 2 misdemeanor charges of stalking and breaking in as well. So there's 3 charges, including felony home invasion and stalking. He also faces 2 misdemeanor charges of stalking and breaking into a home. So that was the legal wording right there from Fox News. This was Sharon Moore's lawyer yesterday speaking when they were walking out of court.
Video froze.
Oh, okay.
Video froze.
Yeah, no, all good. Can we try to play it one more time? Is that a possibility? Let's see if we can get the lawyer one more time. Let's see if chance number 2 works. If not, we'll just move off of it. And I don't think we're going to be able to get
Yeah, I can't get it. My bad. Oh, yeah.
No, it is all good. Basically, the lawyer was like, he's going to be, she said, he's going to be innocent. These charges are eventually going to get thrown out. I don't know about you, Garrett. This story is so unbelievable. Like maybe off a technicality, because you never know what happens in the court of law. Maybe they do get dismissed and maybe he ends up being innocent. But this is one of those stories where, like, Sharon Moore, you got to go get some help. When I was watching that clip yesterday from the lawyer, and what else is the lawyer going to say? Of course, she's going to say that her client is innocent. But I don't know. This seems pretty black and white to me, if you just ask me.
Yeah, I think everything's out there. There's the details of it. It's all very concerning. You go back and look at the film, and there's no way getting around this. I know it's kind of going off of word, and you got to take everybody, what they're saying. But at the end of the day, like all of the scenarios are lining up, that all the dominoes are falling in place. That you did this, bro, and you need to be held accountable.
Like the 2 things I guess here, where you wonder from a technicality standpoint, did he break in? Like, or did she open the door and then said, like, come on in? Like, that's something I wonder. Because you got to prove it. The other thing is, like, the report is that he held a butter knife, like, allegedly to her and threatened to kill her before killing himself. Like, like, how do you prove it? Yeah, I don't know. So maybe he does get off on a technicality. But like Sharon Moore, we've seen a lot of coaches come back from things. I would be stunned if Sharon Moore is ever coaching at a Power 4 conference again. First off, the guy wasn't a good head coach. Let's say that for what it is, too. If he was winning games, maybe some of this stuff does get swept under the rug. But to have all these things going on, like, could he go coach at a small college again where he's on a staff? Sure. But Garrett, like, I don't think anyone's anticipating that Sharon Moore is
Yeah, I think he's done coaching. I don't see him getting back in there and getting another opportunity. And if he does, like, hats off to you, but you're definitely going to have to go down a lower rank, maybe even go through some JUCO routes.
Yeah. So, all righty, Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. Let's get to the poll question, and then we will give you my predictions for conference championship weekend before we get on out of here in 10 minutes. How many teams should be in the college football playoff? The answers 4, 12, 16, and 24. Coming in at 4th place with 6% of the vote is 4. coming in at third place with 10% of the vote is 24. And then we got a tie. How the heck do we have a tie? 12, 42%, 16, 42%. So there we go. I would say I would much rather have 12 over 16. If anything, if you wanted expansion, here would be my compromise. You would have 11 play 14, 12 play 13, a play-in before you get into 12. I don't think we need to see 16 teams in a college football playoff. It's way too many, and it would water it down. And I would rather see less. I'd rather see 4 teams than ever going to 24. If we have a 24-team college football playoff, that would be just an absolute disgrace. I know people say, oh, what are they doing the FCS level and all that stuff? Come on. Like, what are we doing? But 12 has worked. So I like the decision today to stay at 12. I do like that decision. You also had a few other things that were thrown in there, or at least made public today. One that we didn't know was that if you win your conference championship, you're a Power 4 team, which is the ACC, the Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12. You'll be guaranteed a spot. Remember, it was the old format was the 5 highest ranked conference champions would get in. That allowed James Madison to get in this year. That allowed Tulane to get in. Now it's the Power 4 conferences. You win your conference championship, you're in. And then there's going to be one spot still reserved for the G5. And the other thing that was highlighted today, this was already decided before today, and you knew about it really when Notre Dame got left out of the college football playoff. But as long as Notre Dame is in the top 12 in the final ranking, they automatically get in. So last year, Miami was 10, Notre Dame was 11. If that was the case, Miami would have been out, who just got to a championship game. Notre Dame would have been in. And with the conference champions, it being the 4 Power 4 teams getting a guaranteed spot, Duke actually would have got in. James Madison would have been out, and Tulane still would have been in the college football playoff. All righty. To the games this weekend we go. Prediction time. I'm going to take the Patriots to beat the Broncos. I don't think this game is going to be as easy as what a lot of people say. I think Jarrett Stidham at times will be able to manage the game. Ultimately, though, this Patriots defense is just playing too good right now. The Chargers offensive line, the Texans offensive line was no bueno. So I don't think the Patriots defense is going to be as dominant as they were up against LA and up against Houston. The Broncos offensive line is very, very good. Dare I say great. But as the game goes on, I think Barmore, Milton Williams, Spillane, Chason, I think they're going to be able to get to the quarterback, Ellis, and this Patriots team, especially with the secondary and how often or how many injuries the Broncos do have at wide receiver, and we'll see who ends up playing. But with no pass catcher that really scares you, like Cortland Sutton's a good wide receiver, but I wouldn't call him great. Like, he's solid. Don't get me wrong. I think with the Patriots corners and their secondary with Hawkins and Woodson and Gonzalez and Davis and Jones, I think they're going to be able to get a turnover or maybe even 2 on Jarrett Stidham. Now, on the flip side, this is a big game for Will Campbell, the 4th overall pick. This is a huge game. This Patriots offensive line has had a ton of issues through the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. Drake May has had a lot of turnovers because of it. So that Broncos defense is going to be able to get home. This Broncos defense is going to be able to feast. But as the game goes on, just like why I picked the Patriots last week over the Texans, I'll pick the Patriots this week over the Broncos. Last week I told you, both these defenses are great. Both these defenses are very good. But as the game goes on, I trust Drake May to make more plays than CJ Stroud. And with the game still there in the balance, Drake May kind of took the kill shot to Kayshon Boutte. It was a heck of a catch by Boutte, but it was a perfectly placed ball in the snow. Boutte made the one-handed catch, and that was a big difference in the game. I think the same thing's going to be in play this week. Now, tough environment. Patriots never play well in Denver. But Drake May against Jarrett Stidham, even with May struggling so far in the postseason, I do think the Patriots end up winning this game. The formula for Denver is gonna be keep the Patriots under 20 points. If they keep the Patriots under 20 points, they're going to be alive to win this football game. But I think you may have to even keep it in the teens. Like if the Broncos win, I think it's going to be like 16-13, something like that. 17-14. Something in that realm. I think it will be close going into the fourth, but as the fourth quarter goes on, I have the Patriots pulling away. Give me the Patriots beating the Broncos by a score of 24-13. I will have the Patriots beating the Broncos. On the other side, this is a game where I'm just going to lock in my prediction right now and type it on my computer. This is a game that I felt this way all throughout the week. I want to pick the Rams. I think the Rams are the better team. I get it. The Seahawks defense is better, but the Rams have Verse. They have Fisk. They have Turner. They have Young. They have Lake. Like, this Rams team is a heck of a team, even though the Seahawks have the better defense. And offensively, Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams. My initial feel is that the Rams should win this game. And especially when you look at the 2 times these 2 teams played each other this year, Sam Darnold got picked off 4 times. They still had a chance to win the game. They missed the 61-yard field goal. Rams win. But then the Rams, they lost this year to Seattle as well, and they choked a big fourth quarter lead. And then the Rams, ended up losing that game right at the end to the Seahawks in overtime. So it feels like when these 2 teams have played that the Rams have been the better team. And all week long, my head's been telling me Rams are better, Rams are better, Rams are better. But then when it comes to speaking into the microphone, something just tells me that Seattle's going to win. And Seattle just bludgeoned the 49ers. I know no Charbonnet here, which is a loss, but Kenneth Walker is still a very good running back. I remember when he was at Michigan State and he would just run over Michigan in that one game. And they get like 4 or 5 touchdowns or whatever it was. Darnold in a big spot. Like, I don't trust him. But in a bizarre way in this game, I'm trusting Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is going to get a victory. I'm going to say the Seahawks are going to win this game 28-27. I think it is a razor-thin margin. Let me just quickly get you the spreads on these games. I saw the Patriots last time I looked. They were a 5.5-point favorite. When you get to the AFC Championship game, the Patriots are down the current line that I'm looking at to a 4.5-point favorite. So the Patriots are a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under is 42.5. And Seattle's only a 2.5-point favorite. Now, this is just my dumb betting brain. I now like Seattle even more. I think that's a line, and I get it. Seattle's home. They're going to be the favorite. Usually the home team, they're given 3 points. But that just being at 2.5, and I know that I picked them 28-27. I like the Seahawks even more now. I do. I may change that to, I'm going to do a slight alteration here. I'm going to go Seahawks 30, Rams 27. So I'm going to take the 2 favorites this weekend. I'm going to go Patriots laying the 4.5. They'll win 24-13. And then I'm just going to take the Seahawks to cover over the Rams 30-27. And I wouldn't be surprised if that game goes into overtime. That is how close those 2 teams are. That's how good those 2 teams are. And obviously, whoever does win that NFC Championship game, even if it is the Rams or the Seahawks, they will be the favorite in the Super Bowl. They will be the favorite in the Super Bowl over either the Patriots or the Broncos. Like, if the Seahawks or Rams beat, whoever wins there, if they go on to play the Broncos, I think the Seahawks or the Rams would open like at an 8.5-point favorite. If it's the Patriots, I think the Seahawks or the Rams would probably open up at like a 4.5-point favorite. That's the way that I'd probably cook up those numbers and how I think, ahead of those numbers right now. Big thanks to Robert Turbin for joining us today, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, won a Super Bowl championship with them. Also, big thanks to Ty Dunn for joining us, and a big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in all throughout the week. I will be back on Monday right here at 2 p.m. Eastern time on 365 Sports. If you're on our YouTube page, which is 365 Sports. Subscribe. Let's keep on getting those subscribers up and up and up. But you could always subscribe there. YouTube.com/@365 Sports YT. That's what you need to do. YouTube.com. If you're listening to us now after the show ends on podcast, YouTube.com/@365 Sports YT. Subscribe. I really would appreciate it. And you can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, or on TikTok @The Zach Gelb Show. Big thanks to my producer extraordinaire, Garrett Ross, all throughout the week. Excellent job by him, Andrew Valade as well, for doing all the great social media clips, and Mike Hamilton making sure that we are good when we do get on the air with all the production. I should be back, or I'm hoping to be back in New York on Monday. I have a 6:30 a.m. flight tomorrow to Florida, and then I have a 7 a.m. flight back on Sunday. We're supposed to get dumped with like 1.5 feet or 2 feet of snow. So the weather report and the radar that I'm looking at right now, which everyone tells me it's wrong, says the snow's not supposed to start in New York until 8 a.m. on Sunday. A lot of people saying it's going to be overnight. So we'll see if I get on out there. I'm going to be bringing my webcam. I'm going to be bringing my microphone. So if I do get snowed in Florida, I will be in Florida on Monday. But if not, I'll see you back right here broadcasting out of New York City. As always, you can watch us on 365 Sports. So appreciate you. Be safe. Have a fun weekend, everybody. And we will talk to you on Monday, and we'll know who will be going and who will be joining us in San Francisco for the Super Bowl. Yes, we'll be on Radio Row for Super Bowl week, and we will have 5 kick-ass shows next week, getting you all set for all the things that happen in college football and still being, 2 weeks out from the Super Bowl. So have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday, everybody. I'm Zach Gelb. I'm out. Bye-bye. Peace.